For people listening or watching, there's going to be a bunch of random stuff, but this is from people in ECF. So I'm going to shout them out for each question.
The next question we're talking about is going to be product development. The reality is product development takes 2 years. So like if you don't have a product development team, you are 2 years away from having one, right?
The only good thing about tariffs is that it's given us a really good mechanism to look back at everything we do.
You can take any business and be like, here's 15 reasons it just sucks. But then there's also like 4 or 5 reasons that it's awesome.
What's up, Operators Podcast? We're with the full gang here today. We got Matt, Mike, Jason. We talk product, we talk development, we talk return on invested capital. It's mostly a Q&A episode, but we only get through like 3 or 4 of the questions. Pretty good app. Thank you for being here. Jason had surgery, so hopefully you're on video so you can see what that looks like. And we want to thank Northbeam, Postscript, Ceres Analytics, Rich Panel, and the number one sponsor, Fulfill. We want to thank eCommerceFuel. So our sponsors, we love them. 5 softwares I pay and use for. We also have a partnership with eComFuel. These questions came from eComFuel. So if you want to ask us questions, join eComFuel. It's a great community. We shut down our Slack. We combine it over there in eComFuel. We're going to be here every week to guide you through Black Friday, Cyber Monday. There's a bunch of cool stuff happening, but this is just a nice Q&A episode. So let's get started.
Hey guys, this is an ad for Fulfill, one of the partners of the pod, and you're going to get to hear from one of the best operators, Chad Janis, talking about his experience implementing Fulfill with Groons. So Chad, you mentioned that like scaling operations has been a huge part of your success. How have you scaled? What partners, softwares have you used? Fulfill's a partner of the pod, I think, that you use. Tell me a little bit about your experience scaling with them.
Yeah, it's probably about 6 to 8 months ago, we realized that we needed a ERP. We built the business off of like Google Sheets and primarily like Google Sheets. And then we had some like internal engineered solutions that were helping us out. And we were deciding between NetSuite and Fulfill. And frankly, when I was an investor at Summit Partners, we had encouraged, I don't think we were aware of Fulfill at the time. I mean, this is back in 2021, 2020. And so all of the brands that we ended up investing in, we would tell them like, hey, we're going to onboard a NetSuite. And it would take a year. We had a person at our investment firm whose job was ERP implementation. Like literally he would spend a year with the brands helping them with ERP implementation. And it was a slog. And we'd always come to the end a year later after we invested in this business. And they'd pop up and be like, okay, it's mostly done correctly. Here are some things. But literally all this guy did was helping brands with ERP implementation. And, we're growing so fast that wasn't an option for us. Like, I don't know what we're doing in a year. I can't take a year to put an ERP into our systems. And so we were chatting with the Fulfill team. We onboarded with them. I think it took less than 2 months. So speed was highly critical here. Our COO sat down with them. He spent most of the time onboarding and going through that process and felt really compelled with our ability to do it. And it was a precursor for us to be able to do some of our own fulfillment. So historically, we've used 3PLs. We now do a lot of our fulfillment in-house. So absolutely critical part of our system. As I mentioned in the pod, we also do production in-house now, part of our manufacturing process. And so Fulfill is critical for all of that. Every system has like little things here and there, but the speed at which the Fulfill team, when we have an issue, pops in and solves it, I can guarantee you're not getting that from another solution. So they've been great partners, critical to our growth, and will continue to be critical to our growth into the future.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Great partners help you go fast, and they help you open up capabilities that make your business more valuable.
Guys, I'm committed.
And this is a show of commitment.
All right. I missed last week. And I don't want to miss. And I knew that it was going to be us this week, no guest, and I really wanted to chat with you guys. So everyone will have to excuse the look that's going on here. I haven't played golf in a week, guys.
Oh, how you doing? Are you okay without playing golf? Do you need a hug?
it's been really hard, although I think it's probably going to help my swing because I played really great like before we went on. But I think this is actually like the doctor said I look awesome. These doctors are like, they think they're the best thing on the doctors are unbelievable. There's no one with a bigger ego than a doctor.
Well, I don't know, Jason. Have you been on this podcast? Like, do you listen to us?
That's funny, man.
Yeah, it's been hard to do meetings and stuff. So it's good. It's good to be back. Like I've been working like 4 or 5 hours a day and then just going home and crashing because I've been hurting. But Matt, how was the Fulfill event?
Dude, it was great. It's there's a lot of brands in Canada. So it's kind of cool. Like, and Maytab seems to know everybody. I don't know what he does. But I showed up to this thing last night. I think I knew like 3 people. And there was maybe 20, 21. So it's just a dinner here in Vancouver. Got a bunch of brands together, a bunch of eCommerceFuel people too, which was kind of cool. Like I was messaging Andrew ahead of time. I'm like, do you guys have many ECF people here? He's like, oh yeah. Gave me a whole list. Like that guy knows his community so well.
Oh, dude, it's the best community on earth. That's why we joined forces. What brands were there?
Oh, dude, I actually couldn't even rattle off. Like, well, Rob from Outway Socks, that's a cool brand. He came in from Victoria. So I don't know how much you guys know about Vancouver, but there's like the mainland Vancouver, and then they have Vancouver Island, which is like Victoria's. Then there's a whole bunch of other cities out there. So you have to float plane between the two, or you take like a hour to 2 hour ferry. And then there's a brand called Real Mushrooms. This is the best intro ever. You know, you meet somebody and you're like, what do you do? Like, what's your brand? This guy's like, oh, I sell mushrooms. And your immediate response now is, what kind? Like, yeah. What are we talking about? But this guy's got like a 25, 30-year-old mushroom company.
But are they totally legal? Like psychedelic mushrooms in microdosing are totally legal in Canada.
But it's not like magic mushrooms. It's like ashwagandha and reishi and all the stuff that like big Fortune 500 companies buy. Like he's selling them B2B and they have a DTC brand. Both. And the company's super old. Like his old man started it decades ago. And he lives in like this place called Sunshine Coast. If he's listening, he listens to the show. He's a fan. So I'm giving him a shout out. But what a cool company. Like selling mushrooms. People sell weird man. That was my takeaway last night.
Dude, lots of ways to make money. A huge economy. So yeah. We got Jason who got his beat. We got Matt drinking a beautiful coffee in an awesome hotel room after crushing a Fulfill event. Mike, how you been?
I'm good. Man, we got kids that have friends over every day, and summer's just nuts. Like they go to the summer camp where it's like a 4-hour drive, and both of them are going on different weeks. So basically, all I'm doing is ferrying kids to camps and different things, and then it's actually a pretty good time in the business. We got a bunch of different interesting things going on. Summer hot is good for the things that I sell. So
I guess that's true. This is like good season for you.
Yeah. It's like if you're selling insulated drinkware or electrolytes, like people are thinking about that stuff, hydration the most during the summer.
So you mean it's not like December or January?
Man, well, so it's interesting this year because our January sucked. And we were like, man, we were missing comps so badly. And then I went back and looked like 2 or 3 years ago and I'm like, oh, okay, I see what happened. January of 24 was just insane because the Stanley car fire happened. If you guys remember that, like the whole car catching on fire and the tumbler's still okay. And so there was just like a weird, huge surge in insulated drinkware bought in January compared to like any other January. So it looked like everybody had just in our industry had just dropped off a cliff year over year. And it was like, oh yeah, January last year was like totally a one-off. So yeah, in general, you don't want to be selling drinkware. Like I've actually found on a calendar, it's like October 30th is like the lowest of low. Like nobody in the world wants to think about insulated drinkware on October 30th in the United States.
The day before Halloween.
Yeah, exactly. It really is. It's like, it's just like right in that, it's like I could be giving it away and people be like, I'm good. I've got trick-or-treating to do.
Mike, did you guys ever talk a bunch about like the Thunder and your experience? And I know it's like you were in the parade. Like everyone's like, did you see Mike Beckham in the parade? I'm like, what?
Yeah, he looked like he was commanding it.
Can you explain?
You know that meme, Sean likes to use it, of like the guy that's like with champagne and then you zoom out and he's like 18th on the podium. That was me, basically, with the whole like I was partying like I won something. And
Yeah, you got a participation trophy.
That's right. Actually,
That's what it is. It's the equivalent of a kid's participation trophy.
But it was awesome, man. I mean, I would say for sure it was going to be one of the highlights of so one of the cool things that happened through the Thunder's run, I'll share one story, is that the Thunder took me to game 4, which was in Indianapolis, and we were down the entire game. And then like about a minute left, it became obvious that we were going to win. And right at that moment, they did a close up of Brian and I. And so basically, like the happiest moment in their existence for a lot of Thunder fans, Brian and I got put on screen, and so I've gotten a lot of burn off that.
Are you like the least cool person on the sidelines at a basketball game? I feel like I would be.
I could fit that description in a lot of groupings, Matt, but probably.
Like, I feel like if you put me courtside there, I would be the least cool person at an NBA game.
Matt, it's Oklahoma City, so no, Mike's actually probably the cool young guy on the court.
You know what? Yes, that actually is probably true. They talked about it on My First Million. They talked about seeing me on there, and one of the things that they were talking about as a business idea that was pretty cool is like being able to like know what are all the people that are sitting courtside, like what do they do? And it's actually pretty interesting. Like it is a combination of like you get a few people that have just like the guy who sits right behind me, he's all tatted up. They're doing a Netflix series called Starting Five, and they did some interviews with him as like the super fan. But he made all his money putting in the plumbing in a lot of the hotels in Oklahoma City. It's like totally random, awesome guy, would never guess it. And then there's some people that like they own Love's Travel Stops, or they own a huge bank or oil and gas company. And so like you kind of get all types.
Dude, so I was talking to a guy yesterday. He came to my office. He owns like a wallet company. And he was coming, he's just telling me how much it sucks. He bought it from some guy, and he's like, dude, I wish I never bought this thing. He's like, when I bought it, they were doing $6 million in sales. Now they're doing like 1 million. And, he's the type of guy who has like probably 5 or 10 businesses. And he's saying that like e-commerce sucks because he's like, every day I have to find 300 or 500 new customers. His other business, he sells $10 million, like just hotel renovations. So he's like, yeah, I've just done every hotel
Oh my gosh.
Hawaii and Florida. And he's like, it's $10 million a pop. He's like, I go there, it takes 2 days to sell it. They need their hotel to be renovated. I make $10 million. He's like, look, the margins are horrible. He's like, I might make 5% on them. But he's like, it's so much better for me to take that 5% to 6% than try to grow this e-commerce brand.
I think that's the most fascinating thing about business is that you can take any business and be like, here's 15 reasons it just sucks and you don't want to be doing it. But then there's also like 4 or 5 reasons that it's awesome. Like I'm sure hotel renovation can be terrible, and the like a real pain to do. But then it also sounds awesome. $10 million contracts. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I'll do 2 a year. He's like, it's a great business. But cool, Matt, you're running the show today. What are we talking about?
Dude, actually, Mike kind of started, I think, by talking about the whole January simple modern forecast thing. I am curious about this one. Okay, so for everybody listening, here's what I did. I went on eCommerceFuel and I threw up. I talked to Andrew. I'm like, Andrew, I want to get a bunch of questions from the eCommerceFuel community. We're going to do a Q&A episode. So this, for people listening or watching, this is going to be a bunch of random stuff, but this is from people in ECF. So I'm going to shout them out for each question. We're going to go down the list for each one. We're going to get as far as we can in the time we have. And then maybe we'll do another one if people like the format. And you guys we're all going to kind of take a shot at answering this. But since Mike was already talking about comps in January for drinkware, there's a question from Rob Shelton around how each of us has like rhythms and routines for big picture thinking and everyday tasks, education, deep work. Mike, I want you to start here. What got me thinking about your comment in January, I meet so many brands and founders who don't do any budgeting. Like there's zero planning in the business. And when they get to a month, they're like, oh, we're doing terrible. I'm like, well, against your budget. And oftentimes they'll be like, oh, I don't have one of those. I'm like, well, then how do you know you're doing terrible? Like, what are you measuring against? So, Mike, talk about how do you guys plan the business? What are the rhythms for that? And do you guys have like a way to like zoom out and look at past years, look at where things are going? Like, maybe elaborate on that. We can kind of just go around the horn.
Yeah. So when you get big, or relatively big, then this becomes absolutely critical. I think there's just too much going on to kind of fly by your seat of the pants. And one of the things that comes with this is that because your business is much more planned, I think the range of outcomes, especially on the upside, just shrink because you can't grow past what you've bought from an inventory perspective and what your supply chain can support. So there's never going to be a year where you're like, we think we're going to be plus 20. Oh, we're actually plus 60. It just can't work that way. It's literally impossible. It's interesting. Sean and I were on a call with the guy that was president of Stanley through their growth. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is he said they really dealt with scarcity because, like, again, they just couldn't keep up with the demand. It's just true that when you have really extreme demand, you're always going to break your plan. The other thing when you're really planned is that, obviously you're going to have shortfalls and you're going to overbuy and you're going to have to mitigate that. But the way that we basically approach it, you can do top down or bottom up. Bottom up is where you try and look at every individual SKU and every individual channel and say, hey, what do we think this will sell? And you kind of do that process over and over again. We've got thousands of SKUs, channel combinations, and then you kind of build it all the way up, and then you add it all up, and it's like, okay, that's what we think is going to happen on the sales side. You can also do top down, and I think the best process is you probably do some of both, where you try and look at it on an individual SKU basis, and then you just look at the business holistically, and you say, hey, what is logical and what makes sense? So a lot of times, if you do bottoms up and then you come back at it, you look at it from top down, you'll say, wait a second, this might have made sense when I did it on an individual basis, but there is no way that's the number. That just doesn't make sense. And as you get bigger, you start to be able to look at industry numbers and just say, well, okay, I think the industry is going to grow by 5 million bottles in sales this year. And we think we're going to grow by 4 million in bottles. 4 million bottles, like, well, that's probably not going to happen. We need to go back to the drawing board. So we do quite a bit of planning. We have some really gifted people. I think this is an area where AI is going to get very, very good over time. It's interesting. I think we'll talk about this later on, but on the planning side, we certainly have started to play around with using it, but there is still a lot of nuance to, especially when you're omni-channel, where you might see something really start to pop off over here on the website. And you're like, wow, okay, well, let's project that out. It's like, well, wait, hold up. That SKU was suppressed over here on Amazon and they couldn't sell it. And so all that traffic went to the website. So you can't just say, we're going to hit this website, run rate, but then also we're going to get all this Amazon volume. So all that to say, like on the demand planning, it's intensive. There's a team. It's all they do every year. And then we use industry data to kind of vet and say, hey, is this reasonable to kind of sanity check it. And then we do a similar thing on the cost side where we're going to all of the individual department owners, and we don't do like zero-based budgeting. I don't know if any of you guys do.
We do.
We don't do that, but we are looking at the numbers every single year and saying like, okay, hey, what needs to be adjusted? For us, the really big one is we're trying to really increase how much we invest in marketing. And that's probably been the hardest thing to project because aspirationally, we'd like to spend a much bigger number than we've been able to. And so how do we grow our marketing budget at a rate that, makes sense and the returns back out? I know, for example, Sean's talked about this, that they've approached it differently at Ridge, where it's just like, hey, this is our number and we're just going to spend until we're at this number. We've tried to be a little bit more, and one of the reasons why we've had to be a little bit more budgeted is when you get out of the digital platforms, when you start thinking about things like partnerships with the Yankees or the Thunder, which Hexclad and Simple Modern have, for example. Well, those are contracts, multi-year contracts, a lot of times that you're signing, and so you do have to be more structured in how you think about your P&L and all of your costs because you're making commitments that last for a while.
Operators, Black Friday, Cyber Monday's coming up. Is your SMS list ready? If not, get on Postscript. They are helping us drive 14% more email signups through their better opt-ins. They're helping us get 6% more SMS subs every single day because they have perfected the art of pop-ups. You need to build your list. You have to nurture your list. You have to take care of your list. Postscript is the best at that. They're the number one name in SMS. It's their number one revenue driver. We are excited and ready to take advantage of all of the lists we've built all year, okay? Postscript has the best opt-in of all time. It is single sign-in, password autofill right on your phone, and we're going to get probably another 100,000 people to sign up between now and the end of the year. We're going to use those people. We're going to use SMS to nurture them through the funnel. It's an amazing tool. I love it. Make sure you're ready for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Postscript is here to help guide you through everything that you need when it comes to SMS. More opt-ins, more list building. Make sure you don't look like an amateur this BFCM. Use Postscript. Tell them Sean sent you. Tell them the operator sent you. Postscript will audit your SMS program for free and show you how to scale fast before Black Friday, Cyber Monday hits. When we talk about list growth, that's what you have to use before, during, and after Black Friday. You want serious gains. You want Postscript. Thank you for supporting the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Jason, do you guys have a similar process, like where you're kind of doing like big annual budgets and big planning with the team every year? Or is it sort of like rolling budget? We don't really do there's no formal rhythm for this.
So we were terrible at budgeting for a really long time. It's funny when you talked about like big brands with just like literally no real budgeting. That was us until like sort of middle of last year. Yeah, I mean, we did it because, guys, we were growing so fast and we were so profitable. And I was just like, what's the point? Because we never, it's like it's
like inventory forecasting.
let's order enough product, hopefully. And through 2021, we were in a position where we literally couldn't even produce enough product. So it's almost like max it out, sell it all, rinse, repeat. And then last year was a tougher year. Marketing efficiency went down for the first time in 2024. And the good news is we hired a great VP of finance last year. She's a former CFO of a public company. And I got her and the team to really roll up their sleeves on doing really professional budgeting. And so I now have 3 people. Have my VP of finance and our head of FP&A, and he has someone else in FP&A, and they work with every department and every geography, and they do an annual budget at the beginning of the year, and then we just did a second half budget, basically a revision for the rest of the year. We also we have a weekly marketing budgets meeting with finance. So finance and the growth team talk. I join maybe every 4th time. And we have that weekly meeting about marketing because obviously marketing is our biggest spend. And then we also have pretty frequent meetings about hiring. So at any point in time, right, we're looking at all of our biggest line items, our variable cost line items and spend. And even hiring is like variable costs over the long term, right? Because like we're going to hire 20 people. So marketing is super variable, hiring is variable. And then, other big picture. So there's a lot of conversations about budgeting at HexCloud now. I think we're definitely, and we have to do it now because we have a syndicate of banks in our syndicated loan. And these guys get quarterly numbers from us and they get a quarterly certificate signed by me. Saying that we're in compliance with all of our covenants and all that. And then I got these pesky owners here at HexCloud that like taking money. So I got to figure out how and when can we take money out because we're not a VC backed company, and we eat what we kill and we try to eat well. So there's a lot of that, and I'm actually really proud of where we've gotten to, but we are still like light years away from where I want to be in 2 ways. Number one, our forecasts are just not good enough. Like they're just not accurate enough. And lately it's been, oh, we missed by X%. It's no big deal. Like we only missed by a little. But like, no, you can't miss by any. Like if you want to be a public company, there's like no missing by a little. Like, so how do I get people in the mentality like you can't miss by any? And the interesting thing is, and you hear this a lot. I heard this a lot when I was a banker. When people miss their numbers, they would always be like, "Oh, well, we missed top line revenue, but we made, we beat on EBITDA, right?" And that's because you can kind of control costs or you can fudge costs for reporting purposes. So that's like that's a thing that you see a lot. It's like the hardest thing is to predict revenue, and having the discipline to predict it in such a way that you're not going to miss. I mean, you can say like public companies, they just sandbag their numbers and there's like an EPS forecast. And then there's like the whisper number that they're really going to hit and they never over forecast. And sometimes they beat by a lot. Sometimes they beat by just a little. So there's lots of ways to do this. And we've been thinking about this a lot, but I think we have a pretty good planning process in place. We're also in all kinds of geographies now. We're literally, we're in every country in the EU, we're in the UK, we're in Japan, we're in Australia, we're in China, we're in Canada. We even just launched Mexico. So we're in all these places. It gets harder and harder to do this. It's definitely getting geometrically harder, not linearly harder to do a lot of these things. And the really, really, really hard part becomes demand planning. And I'm sure that Mike and Sean, with all their SKUs, like could probably teach us some really good lessons about demand planning. And we're getting better at it, but it's a massive game of Tetris right now. Getting the ordering, getting the POs, getting everything where it needs to be, into what country, into what facility. It's I'm really impressed with our team at like the fact that we've actually figured out how to do this, but I still think we can be so much better at it, all of it.
I certainly cannot help you with demand planning because we do everything on demand. And I think, Sean, you've very publicly said you guys were awful at inventory for so long because you would just buy so much of it and then, get stuck. Well, not get stuck, but you would be sitting on a year's worth. I think at the beginning of the tariff thing this year, you were sitting on like a year's worth of inventory. And I think on the pod, you were like, well, we're just going to make a decision to make that last 2 years if we have to. So Sean, with you guys, you do the annual thing with your team, right? Like you get everybody together. Is that the planning cycle for the company? Like, do you guys get everybody together and it's like everybody shows up and there's a ton of work that happens where you guys look forward in time? Like, here's how we're going to build the company. Here's the new categories. This is what we're going to do. Or is it more look back? Like, I don't think we ever actually talked about like, what do you guys do at this big annual thing that you put together other than just like have fun and party?
Yeah. That's just a party. I think there's two separate functions. The next question we're talking about is going to be product development. Yeah. And the reality is product development takes 2 years. So like if you don't have a product development team, you are 2 years away from having one, right? It is not software. You can't just like vibe code something and launch it. We typically try to get into 2 different categories every single year. So 2 net new categories. And we have 2 categories coming out next year that we've been working on for probably 4 years or something. Right. And like, and when you hear that, it sounds like we've been grinding our ass off for 4 years to get this done. No, it's just like, it takes really long to like, go through dev cycles. Slow. Yeah. I mean, Mike knows better than anybody, right? He worked on a lid and that lid took like 9 months of engineering time. It's like, that's just how long.
It's amazing. There are lids, to Sean's point. And we're coming out with a product in the next week that I think is my favorite product we've ever made. And we started work on the bottle design before COVID.
Wow.
I mean, this one's got a long and winding road for a variety of reasons, but it illustrates Sean's point that it's just like getting healthy in product takes way longer than you would think. And then, as it relates to demand planning, when you do, like if we release a new water bottle, that's going to blow up everything. And that's where the demand planning really gets tough, is when you're disrupting yourself. you're like, okay, this is the tumbler we've been selling for the last 3 years, and we could maybe kind of project what it's going to do, but we have no idea what it's going to do because our new tumbler's coming to market. And does that grow the pie? Does that totally cannibalize? It gets very, very dicey.
It's a good point because, like, I think, Sean, is that the second part of it? It's like there's the development cycle for new products, right? And then there is the how much of the existing stuff are we going to sell every year, right?
Oh, well, the second part is actually the sales cycle, right? So like, the product runs on its own timeline. And we talked to people from Yeti who do product and like, yeah, they know what they're going to make in 2030 already, right? Like that's how long you have to think out, like if you're trying to launch new categories. So like there's a product cycle and we put those on a launch calendar. And so I know what's going to come out all next year, right? And we have colors, which take, way less time. We have partnerships take a little bit longer. Then we have like new product, actual like development that takes like the longest amount of time. And we say, okay, this is going to be ready by this date. This is when it's going to launch. Then we stack that against what do we think sales are going to be, right? So that's just me and Connor work on that project. So, we tried to bring in a finance team. We tried to have finance do it. And they just had such a worse understanding of our business. Very smart people, way better at financial planning, they're like, okay, we're going to look at website visitors. This is what we think website visitors will convert at. We don't do it that way. We're like, what was last year's sales? Let's go month by month, week by week and be like, what do we get right? What do we get wrong? What did we learn? Where do we think there's like still meat left to actually like extract from the bone? So we do that together. We'll do that in December, probably the last 2 weeks of the year. Connor he'll be in LA by that point. So we'll be hanging out every day just doing that. And then we try to find reasons to grow, right? And that's like the big thing to take away from this conversation is that left static, your business will stay the same or shrink, right? So we've been able to grow at Ridge because our MER went down every year, right? And the only years where it went up, there's probably 2 years in company history where the MER went up. It was because we launched a new product category that was net new to the business, right? That could grow revenue at a higher MER. So we have to look at reasons to grow. If you're like, I'm going to do the same thing and I'm going to spend less money on ads, but revenue is going to grow, that does not happen, right? Like, it's like, there has to be a new reason for people to come in. So me and him will work on that together. We'll get that done probably by like January 1st. Then I'll spend the first week or 2 weeks of the year locked up doing my own annual report. So I'll look back, I'll pull all the data and I'll put it together. Then I'll present to the whole company like, probably the end of January. They'll know what our goals are for the rest of the year. They'll know what the strategic objectives are, the projects we're going to work on, that type of stuff. But so 2 separate functions. It's like product, whatever products will be done that year go on the calendar, but I can't be like, hey, get this product done on time and put it on the calendar. It's like, it just doesn't work like that in product development.
I try to make it work like that, and I beat my head against the window because I do come from software where like I just feel like you can make anything and ship it whenever you want. So like being in physical goods now for 8 years running this company, it's incredibly frustrating because of how long. Listening to you guys, it's actually kind of therapeutic. I like this.
It's like there's an old adage. It's like about the old adage about inventory. You buy your inventory wrong 100% of the time. You're either too heavy or too light. It's just the year is finding out which way you missed. And I think that that's the thing with planning. One other thought I had as Sean was talking that I've learned is that really you'll have people on your team who are great backwards thinkers. They can look at and document things that have happened and then kind of say, in light of that, here's what I think is going to happen in the future. And then you have people that are great intuitive forward thinkers who are able to say, hey, in light of really a lack of information in the past about this new product line or about whatever, I can still kind of project out what I think is going to happen in the future. And you have to have both in the planning process. And people that are backwards thinkers tend to be really concrete. And so it's very difficult for them when you're like, hey, there's this new product and it's going to do, 20 million in revenue. They're like, I don't know that I believe that. Like, why do we think that? And you're like, well, usually you'll have some reasons for thinking it, but it is more intuition. And so you just have to kind of meld these two personality types, the kind of vision and forward looking with the backward looking in order to continue to grow as a business, but have a workable plan.
You might remember that Ridge switched to Rich Panel about a year ago. Since then, our orders are climbing, yet support tickets aren't. Rich Panel's self-service portal now lets 47% of our shoppers solve their own issues instantly. We used to answer every single ticket with a person. Now, that one change is on track to save us $500,000 in support salaries just this year. Our customer satisfaction is at an all-time high. It's above 96%. And we're doing that with less people, with more orders. AI is all the rage. E-com operators are finding ways to leverage AI and improve the revenue per employee. Ridge targets over $2 million per full-time employee, and Rich Panel is helping us achieve that goal. Rich Panel offers one of the most straightforward ways to leverage AI and improve your bottom line. Here's how Rich Panel's AI is different from anything else out there. First, Rich Panel spends the first 24 hours just learning your past conversations. Then it takes all that knowledge and creates self-guided service flows. There's no chatbots, there's no hallucinations. It is just exactly what your customers need to see and hear to solve their problems immediately after that first 24 hours. Our team saw the impact on day one. We're getting more tickets. They're being resolved faster, better, with a higher level of competency, and a higher level of satisfaction, all with less people on the team. So if you're serious about boosting revenue per employee and freeing agents to do higher value tasks, book a demo. Switching is painless. They do data migration. They train the staff. Everything's handled. It's a white glove service for operators listeners. Brands like Ridge, Jones Road, Pila, Lomi, they're all already switched and they rely within 2 weeks. They guarantee 30% ticket reduction in the first 60 days or your money back. Think about that. You're going to get a bunch of customers coming to you. Q4 is just around the corner, and they guarantee 30% reduction in human tickets in the first 60 days. If that's interesting to you, go to richpanel.com/demo to book a demo. That's RICH panel.com/demo. Get started today. Thank you so much, Rich Panel, for supporting the world's #1 e-commerce podcast and being on the greatest show on earth. Let's get back to it.
Well, Sean, how like Jason made a comment, Mike, you're just making me think of Jason's comment about how difficult it is to be accurate in your sort of forecasting and budgeting. And that yet there's a need, like the public markets sort of almost insist on like, you have to be very good at this. And anybody who's ever had investors, I've always like one of my bigger points of contention with my board and my investors has always been why are you holding me to a higher standard than public companies when it comes to forecasting? Like Apple during COVID, they all suspended forecasts. And my board was like, well, what are you guys going to do next year? I'm like, bro, like the biggest companies in the world can't do this right now. Like, what do you mean? What am I going to do? Like, I don't know.
There's a great passage in Apple in China where they've been growing. They didn't think the China business would be very big. And then they got totally blindsided. It was massive. It just like, no matter how much they got there, they could sell it. There's this crazy story. Basically, like the organized crime got involved in buying these phones and reselling them. And there were only like 2 Apple stores at first in China, or maybe only 1. And one of these crime bosses goes and he tells the manager, he's like, I have infinite demand. I have infinite money to buy iPhones, as many as you can get. He's like, really? He's like, yes, come here. He takes him down to this warehouse and it's just full of money. Like think about like in, like the Dark Knight or whatever, where there's just that huge pile of money. He's like, there might have been $50 million in this warehouse. And he's like, I will buy every iPhone you bring in. So anyway, this iPhone's like huge for Apple. It's growing. It's a massive part of their business. And then they launched, I think this might have been 17. I can't remember what year it is, but they launched a new phone that they think is going to be like, it's a little bit more budget conscious. They think it's going to be great. And they are totally blindsided by like a 50% miss. They're like, their miss on their forecasting is like, it's so big. It's like 50 million units. They thought they were going to have like 100 million units of demand and they had like 50 million units. And it turned out that the answer was Huawei and that the market just kind of turned pretty quickly on them. But it's like, listen, if Apple can miss a forecast by 50 million units in a country over a 6-month period, then like, any business is going to have a tough time with planning.
But how, maybe this is just like, I immediately go to the media buying comment, Jason, because, so much of your business is D2C and so much of that is driven by like this big line item, variable line item, which is ad spend. Sean, how do you guys think about like how would you solve Jason's problem for accuracy? And like, you spend this much money, you generate this much demand. I can tell the market this is what I'm going to do. Like, I'd be curious to know like how you think of that as like the ad heavy guy on the show.
Yeah. Well, first with product development, think about it like you have to think about what you're going to swing before the pitches come, and you have to lock in those swings 10 or 20 pitches ahead of time. So, the problem with that is we've hit a couple home runs, but then the next launch coming out, you can't change it because it takes 2 years, right? And the inventory's been bought and it's coming out. So if you really do as many launches as me, I have 10 or 20 shots a year. I know one or two of them is going to be a massive hit, but like I have to swing at every one of them like they're a home run. And sometimes you make horrible swings, dude. Like I've launched some products that like nobody buys, right? But like you have to not let that dissuade you from the next thing you're going to launch. And then when you do find a hit, you have to be okay being like, okay, the next 5 pitches, I'm abandoning them, even though I bought them, even though whatever, because I have to go back and just make sure I capitalize on the home run I hit. So anyway, that's one of the challenges about product development is that like, even if you're great at it, like no one knows their customer, no one knows what people want. I think all that's bullshit. Like until it's out there in the real world and people are buying it, you just have no idea, right? And you just have to take a bunch of shots to find the actual winner. Now, if I was Jason, I was trying to be a public company. What public companies have is diversity, right? Like, okay, Apple can miss 50 million units in their China business. They probably missed forecast by 2% because they have a services business. They have massive geographies everywhere else. They have all these different lines, right? They're not just iPhones. They have iPads. They have, they probably had a TV at that point. They have all of these different devices, and the diversity, smooths out the business, right? And that's what makes forecasting probably, it sounds more complex, but it lets you just cover up more mistakes, right? You can have a massive miss on a market if you make up for it someplace else. The other thing is there aren't a lot of great public consumer brands, right? Like, I mean, Nike just suspended forecasting this year. And they were worth $100 billion. And most of the great consumer brands are conglomerates because they have diversity of business. So it's really hard to be a hexclad where you have one massive product category. You control all of the sales volume yourself. There's no retailers to go to. You can expand geos, but those are they're not mature yet. So like with a non-mature business that's still growing, there's just a lot of room for bumpiness.
How do you smooth out, like with the ambition, if the true ambition is to go public and you need to get to predictability with the variables that Sean just outlined, right? Where you don't have like, I think a lot of the great consumer companies that are public, they have these like long retail cycles too that give them predictability in their forecast. So like they know that Walmart's going to buy $50 million next year because the POs are already placed. But like in D2C, dude, like you actually don't know your MER next year. You could take a swag. You could say like, well, I know it's going to get 30% worse next year because that's every year. Meta's got to take its tax. But how are you guys like at Hexclad? Because I think this is a very important part of planning. Like you're trying to build a brand, and if you don't have like absolute meteoric demand, you gotta do what Sean is talking about. Like, what is the reason somebody's going to show up and buy 4 million wallets next year? What are the reasons? So how do you do that right now?
Yeah, look, it's really, really hard. And, we've built a really good team of really smart people. I think we're really good operators. We've interestingly enough, like the point about, oh, well, you just lower your MER and you grow. We kind of defied that for a couple of years, and we didn't defy it last year. And that was like the big slap in the face wake up call. And then we've actually kind of gone back to just not chasing growth. So having more reasonable growth aspirations this year. I think tariffs the only good thing about tariffs is that it's given us a really good mechanism to look back at everything we do and all of our growth, all of our objectives and the way we manage everything and say, and this is sort of like your zero-based budgeting comment. It's like we can just like, we're kind of rebooting the system. We're doing a soft reboot of the system this year. And I also like Sean said, product development a bunch of times. A bunch of us said product development a bunch of times. Like we know our biggest opportunity and biggest weakness as a company is product development, because we were able to very easily launch new cookware pieces because we know what people need, right, to add to their collection. But at some point, the marginal cookware piece is just like not as important. Once you have like the 20 pieces that you need, 21 and 22 are not as important. So this year is the year that we have, really just said, all right, we're going to reboot product development. We're going to totally reboot product development. And we're doing it in a very hex-clad way, which is like the rules don't apply to us. The way people do things are just wrong. And it's just like old school. And we're not just like following the old school playbook. Like we really changed up. We don't have the team that we need yet, and we're going to work on that. But we did like reposition a bunch of people in the company to like change their focus. And so I think for us, that diversification comes through product and through geography. But everything you said was absolutely correct, right? Like all these, there's just so many more inputs, and it's just it's less concentrated. In these bigger businesses are just less right. So that's why that's why small public it's really hard to be a small public company. That's why a lot of these guys got absolutely destroyed. The ones that shouldn't have been public in the first place, but maybe we're riding that like, high growth consumer bandwagon in 2021. And that all got exposed because like once you start missing, you're dead. Like you're dead, right? All those guys are dead because they disappointed Wall Street so many times. And it's like portfolio managers simply cannot invest in them anymore. Like there's just no way. So we're learning from those mistakes and trying to do things properly, but it's actually really, really hard. Yeah, it's actually really, really hard to be hexclad. As much as like we are a darling to so many people, and it's really amazing what we've built. It's really, really hard to be hexclad right now, and I love every minute of it. But it's like it doesn't get easier. You just go faster.
Well, I was gonna say, hang on though, but I think my challenge to you would be that is that not just of your own making? Like you guys are just setting higher and higher bars and setting like loftier goals and I guess like higher bars for excellence, Jason. Because like you don't need to go public. You don't need to get to a size where all of this has to be true. You could just maintain like being a cash machine, could you not?
Yeah, we could run at 10% growth forever, right? We could run at 10% growth forever with like very pretty solid profit margins and just do that.
Yeah.
But that's boring.
Okay, that's an important point.
But there's also, you just have more and more constituents that you're answering to. Like, for example, Gordon has equity in Hexclad, right? And so like, as you start to get more people that own equity, like they want liquidity events, right? And then as you have more and more employees, you just have more and more people that are dependent on you. I was around somebody recently that's runs a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And I was just realizing that like, the only thing that changes is that the numbers are just bigger and there's just more and more people depending on you as your business grows. Like you still have tons of problems, you still have stressors, and it's easy to think like, oh, if my business was 50% bigger or 100% bigger, it'd be great. But it really is just more responsibility kind of consistently is what I hear. I don't know, maybe that's the wrong perspective, but I like what you're saying, Matt, that like, you don't have to do any of these things, but there also does become an inertia as you get bigger and bigger that just your community, all these people, all these different constituents are depending upon you and pressure ramps with that.
I think it's I think no matter what though, my challenge would be like, we have a choice, right? You have to fight very hard for those choices. Like as you get bigger, inertia is something that you either fight against or you just let it take you and you manage it. And I think what Jason's describing is like, they're at such a size and there's so much momentum that right now what they're just trying to do is like manage it and do it at a level of excellence that like him and Danny and the other guys are like, we just want to perform at this level. That's a choice, right? I'm bringing it up because like, I don't want people to think that like this is an absolute, as you get bigger, no matter what, this is just true. You can choose. Like there are, I am sure, Sean, one of your favorite companies is James Purse, right? Like I am sure that company does not run this way. Like they have been around a long time. They seem to make the strangest, like their product roadmap. I don't know. They made like a pool table at one point, or they got a hotel. Like they're just a very different animal from what I can see. I don't know how much you know about the company, but like that to me is also on the other end of what Jason's describing.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about measurement of growth, right? So we talk about growth being top line revenue. You could also talk about growth being EBITDA or profit. You talk about growth being new customers, right? There's a bunch of different ways you can grow as a business. James Purse hasn't grown revenue in like a decade, right? But they put up $40 million a year in profit every single year, right? And they probably are acquiring less customers than ever before, but they just raised their prices a bunch until the people who really want it and will stretch for it will actually end up purchasing it. And who am I to tell them that's stupid or bad?
Right. Yeah. Everybody has a different definition of winning.
But they have a constituency that's happy with that. And I think Mike actually made a very valid point, which is that we've made decisions that created constituencies inside our organization that require certain outcomes at some point. We can always change that. You can always skinny that up. There's ways to do it. And also you have like, your employees that you want to attract the best talent. And I think if you have like a certain path that you attract a certain level of talent. And if it's just like, hey, guess what, guys? We're going to grow, we're going to just run this thing and we're not going to grow anymore, but we're going to keep it profitable and we're going to kind of do what we want and run a lifestyle business. We could absolutely do that. And I'm sure like half of our really good people would be gone and the other half, we'd have to pay them more. So it's almost like it equals itself out, right? It's like almost like there's an efficient market for this stuff. There's like a level of efficiency that's still going to make it difficult in different ways. So it's interesting.
Yeah, being a millionaire is not easy. It's like being like running a really awesome brand where you make a ton of money. And like, man, I wish it was a lot easier. Dude, I think all of us do. It being difficult is just the nature of the game. Jason, what do you like about Ceres? You were gone for the past week in Italy. Were you checking Ceres dashboards?
I wasn't checking anything in Italy, but I will say this, like whenever anyone on my teams, like growth team or anywhere else, like sends me data anymore, it's likely coming out of Ceres. And every once in a while, I'll get something from them and it looks really slick. And I'm like, where'd you get that? Is that Ceres? And like, yeah. And I always feel really good about our investment. I do get a daily email of some metrics out of Ceres that comes through. But one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is AI. Duh, right? Everyone is. Duh. But like, I finally woke up a few weeks ago. I was like, I got to get serious about this. And I was actually talking to the Ceres guys, and they launched the next generation AI powered stuff in their platform, which I'm excited about. It's Ceres IQ. It's invite only right now. If you mention Operators Podcast, you can probably get access, hopefully. But the next level of all of this is first with AI, you need to have all of your data somewhere. I mean, it's going to be really messy to just drop stuff into different AI platforms. If you have your data in one place, and then you can really leverage AI. So the way I've thought about our investment in Ceres Analytics was getting all of our data in one place, understanding our customers better, understanding our marketing metrics better, but then being able to layer AI on top of that is, I think, the really exciting next level here.
You brought up bringing in Costco, Amazon, and Shopify. The ability to have all sales channels with the same data is so important. If you're listening to this and you sell on Amazon, you know how painful that platform is. You have to wait like a couple extra days to pull your reports. Like the SKUs aren't the same as the rest of your SKUs. Like the titles are different. So like to get actually like clean data to compare, it's very manual. Using Ceres Analytics, they matched all that up for us. So like they cleaned all that data. So I can actually look at what is the true margin profile of an Amazon sale. What's Amazon return rate? What's Amazon customer frequency? Like all the type of data compared to our .com, and have like a comprehensive overview. And now with their new AI tool, I don't have to look at it. I could just ask it. It could just tell me cool questions. So doing that across our 5 Shopify stores as well. We have an EU Shopify store. So now I can compare EU Ring customer cohorts versus Canadian Ring customer cohorts versus Amazon Ring customer cohorts. So now we're getting to different functions of my business across different channels, different categories, and actually looking at the margin, the repeat rate, and like, is it worth investing in these different things? So if your business starts to feel like a spider web and just like keeps going and going and going, it's just like this nonstop proliferation of different channels, maybe it's time to check something out like Sales Analytics.
I remember, Sean, at the very beginning, this is a very typical Sean thing. Sean was like, what is this? Why do I need this? Right. And I'm actually really happy that you come to understand like how important having a data warehouse is and what it does for managing your business, because you were not like a true believer from the beginning.
No, I was angry when you told me I needed to pay for something new, but Jason was right. He convinced me. He got me on board. I'm using it. So a rare Jason W. So thank you,
Exactly.
Jason.
Very rare.
I'm on Sales Analytics. He's on Sales Analytics. Proud sponsor of the Operators Podcast. So if you want a data warehouse and you want an AI-powered data warehouse, tell Saris about the Saris IQ feature, and then you crave it. You're demanding you get access to it. So, all right, guys. Talk to you later.
To skip a couple of questions, because listening to you guys talk about this particular topic, like growth, how intentional is it? What are you doing? There was a question from this guy named John Gattuso about capital allocation and how do you decide what you reinvest in the business versus returning capital to shareholders? And I think that's actually like kind of what I was getting at is like James Purse might generate $40 million a year. He's not growing top line, but like that company, that might be their North Star. Right? It's like, we're just going to distribute as much cash to shareholders as possible every year. And that's the purpose of the brand. How do you guys think of this? Like, is there a target distribution, Mike? Like in your company, do you have like a target?
This was like a ton of last year was trying to think through this once we got to like some of the EBITDA numbers we got to. So in our business, we really had to start to think about this last year. The way that we approached our equity cap table is pretty much all of the people that built the business, early joiners, have some form of equity. They had to buy that equity. So the equity is a big part of their net worth, and they purchased it. So I want there to be a return. And the business was making significant money. So my CFO and I sat down and we looked at it and we said, we want to be reinvesting in the business. That's growth. So this would be like what Sean's talking about. This is product launches. This is buying additional inventory that's speculative, like, hey, we're going to go to Europe, whatever. We're going to get into this new sales channel, but we're going to have to invest working capital to do it. So that's one bucket. Another bucket is just the working capital for growth on existing products, things that we're already doing. Okay, Walmart wants to put us in these additional facings. They want to put us in the baby section. We need some working capital invested there to earn a return there. And then there's dividends. We're a C Corp, so it's dividends and B distributions if you're an S Corp or LLC. And then there's redemptions, which is everybody on our cap table is asking, hey, it's great that the company has this 9-figure valuation. How do I actually recognize that? Because I don't have plans on taking us public. This is another thing, going back to what Jason was saying. Having equity is great, but there is always going to be the question of, how do I sell that equity someday? Being a public company at least answers that. When you're a private company, then you have to kind of have an answer of like, okay, here's how you're actually going to be able to cash out. And those are like and then there's taxes basically. So, and I guess we have another bucket, which is giving. So you take how much money we make, you take out your giving, you take out your taxes, you take out how much working capital you need for existing business growth, you take out some money for product launches and speculative growth, and then you split what's remaining between dividends and redemptions is how we're doing it. And the way that we approached it is I basically said, I think we should be able to run the business first. Actually, another thing, we said, we're just not going to have debt. Like, we're going to knock out debt. And then once we get to that point, we're going to say, I think what we said going into this year was something like 35% of EBITDA is going to go out in dividends. 10 to 15% is going to be used to redeem shares. And then the other 50% is going to a combination of taxes and kind of growth initiatives, working capital initiatives. And so we kind of at the beginning of every year, we will give all the shareholders, hey, here's the guidance of what we think we're going to do. If you're growing slower, I think that number can get bigger. You need less money going into working capital. If you're growing faster, that, vice versa. And how much we're doing on redemptions also, I think we'll move around over time. But anyway, that's how we're thinking about it, is dividing it into those buckets.
Sean, do you guys have a similar allocation?
Dude, no. I mean, yeah, Mike's thought about it. I think this is the benefit of being a C Corp, right? Is that like, the company has taxes, the company can hold capital. Where when you're an S Corp, all of the capital held in the business has been paid. Like it has to be passed to shareholders, and taxes have to be paid on that first, right?
Yep.
So essentially, like an S Corp essentially needs to be drained every year, right? But that doesn't really happen. There has to be working capital in the business. That capital is post-tax. Somebody had to pay tax on that money. So Ridge has a very unique tax structure that I'm not going to get on here, but like essentially, we're all in it together. So like, there's 5 or 6 of us that own this business. We all essentially pay each other's taxes. Like we are all locked the in on this thing because of the nature of the business. So it's really ultimately my call. So it's like, we have a net income number. We also don't have any debt in this business. So we have a net income number. I make sure we have enough taxes to cover everybody's taxes. That gets distributed first. Then I have to leave working capital in the business. And then what's left over, we do out as dividends. We've never thought about redemptions. Nobody's tried to sell any shares.
But Sean, you're doing it the right way for like a pass-through entity. We're an LLC, but we do it, similar, right? You gotta, number one, it's a pass-through, so you gotta give people money to pay the taxes on the profit. Like, there's no way, because otherwise they have to go out of pocket. Unlike Mike, who's a C corp, and if they don't pay dividends, the taxes are at the corp level, right? And then you need money for working capital, for inventory, et cetera. And if you're growing fast, it's actually, there's not a lot left. We've talked about this before, right? There's just not a lot left because taxes are real money, and paying for next year's inventory is real money. I think the question that Matt had, which we really didn't get to the answers so specifically, is, so like there's whatever is left, you can reinvest in the business. So there's working capital, which you just have to do. You just have to do that. But whatever is left, either reinvest it in the business or you take it out in profit. And I think it's very kind of personal to everyone and their own philosophy and the business, how they do that. But does Ridge think about that? Like there's an amount that's left. You're obviously taking some out. You said you're doing some distributions. But is there also like money that's being earmarked for different growth initiatives or other things?
We have never let our distributions get in the way of what the company wanted to do.
That's it right
That's
there.
Huge.
What drives it, I mean, thank you for bringing it back, Jason, but what Sean's saying is preach. It's like, what does the business need? What does the business have the ability to invest? You start there.
Yeah. So, new products are expensive, right? If we have a deal we want to do, or if we wanted to buy something, like, we ended up buying a building, we bought a factory, all that type of stuff. We never let distributions get in the way of that, right? So distributions are always a third order effect, where it's a fourth order effect. It's got to pay your taxes, got to buy inventory, got to have working capital, got to, invest in whatever the business needs to be successful for the next year. Whatever's left, we end up doing distributions on.
Can one of you guys, maybe Jason or Mike, I don't know who wants to do this, but I'm just thinking of people listening. Can one of you define working capital?
Yeah. I mean, really simply, you have to have money in things like inventory and property and plant in order to sell. And so your business has to have a certain amount of capital, cash in it at all times in order to engage in selling. And the amount of capital Depends on how much you're selling, how many weeks of cover you're carrying. We don't run businesses where we have to invest in a lot of things like oil rigs or, we're fairly asset light in the sense that most of what we own is inventory. But I'll give a really specific example from this year. Like, let's say on average that Simple Modern carries $20 million in inventory at any given point in time. It's probably $20 to $25 million. When we got a 30% tariff out of nowhere, that means you're going to have $6 to like maybe $7.5 million of extra cost. That's working capital. My working capital has to go up by $6 or $7 million because of the tariffs. So as a result, this year, we actually suspended dividends for a while because it was just like, well, you know what? There's a $7 million airball that we've got to fill. And once we fill that one time, you don't have to refill it over and over and over again, but you got to put that extra $7 million in the business because now that's the ante, that's the cost of doing business.
Yeah. The other thing is like working capital. How are you going to pay your rent and your people and your bills and all the things that come up if one of your vendors doesn't pay you for 30 days or 60 days or whatever, right? There has to be some amount of float in the business to cover those things. Like, you have employees and they have their own, you got to make sure you pay them. And working capital is just a cushion to make sure that, like, as a responsible business owner, if something happens, an outside force that it doesn't cause you to do, a domino effect inside of your business. So that's like, there's inventory, and then there's just like, you do just need raw cash to cover expenses.
This is also why with public companies, a lot of investors, the stat that they will look at is return on invested capital. Successful investors will often look at return on invested capital because it reflects on a management's ability to be very efficient with their working capital. So you can you can brute force it. I'm sure if we just gave Sean $50 million more in working capital, like, he could grow sales, but there's diminishing returns. You get less and less efficiency on that capital as you try and go bigger and bigger. Like, you don't have product lines to put it into. You don't have really good ideas to invest it into. And that's the point that I think Sean was making earlier, is that, like, you let the business and what the business can do dictate how much capital. I think being on the safe side, where you're never distressed, where you're never like cutting it too close, is good. But then the other thing you're balancing with is you need to be earning a good return, because you're taking capital that your shareholders could have invested in the stock market or buying yachts or whatever it is that the HexCloud guys do. And you're having to balance those two things.
Yeah, working capital. Well, I think this is just a really interesting topic in general. I think if you have good opportunities to invest for your business, you should invest as much as you can, because that's why you're in charge. And you have a fiduciary duty to the business, to the shareholders, to run the business to the best of your ability. And investors like chose to trust you by giving you the money, and you kind of should do what you want. And if investors don't like it, well, they shouldn't. A, they shouldn't have gone into business with you, and B, they hopefully get a chance to vote with their feet at some point. And you're in a really great position if you have good business ideas and opportunities to go invest instead of taking out distributions. If you don't need the money, I think like the Ridge team probably could take out more money, could probably have taken out more money over the last 2 years, but they just don't care to live a lavish lifestyle. I mean, Sean bought a nice house. He's not in Hancock Park, like he's not in Beverly Hills, and he bought himself a great place, and he and his wife have a lovely home. And there's like at a certain point, you get to different stages in your life and you want different things. So, but if you have the opportunity to invest in like great things for your business, like absolutely invest in those things. Just be really, you just got to use really good business judgment and make good decisions and surround yourself with the right people. Yeah, it's risk versus its own risk allocation. It's like risk versus reward. And surround yourself by great people, by great advisors, great board, whatever. Hash it out. But at the end of the day, like, you're in the seat and you got to make the calls.
It's
Yeah.
like, it's almost like a curve where it's like early on, no money to distribute, bad. And then there's a point where getting to, hey, we've got a lot of money that we're making, but we can reinvest most of it and we don't have that much to distribute. That's really good. It's really healthy if you're like, well, we made $20 million, but we can, we could use 15 million to grow the business. What's the place you really don't want to be, I think, is where you're very profitable, but there's no idea about how to grow the business. And so you just have to jettison all the cash out of the business. And I don't know, maybe people would disagree with me, but
I don't know that consumer companies have this problem.
yeah, maybe you never.
Like
maybe you
Google
never
and
get
Apple seem to have gotten there, and Meta seems to have gotten there. But
Well,
then they
I think
found
that's
this
my
cool
point. Is if you
AI
get
toy.
there, I think it's like a harbinger of bad times are ahead. Like, because you don't have a way to plow it back in the business, and it's like, even if you're really profitable, are you going to be able to maintain that in consumer?
LA, the only place where people can talk about a multi-million-dollar house.
So true.
I'm like Jason.
Yeah.
But Mike's custom built a beautiful home for him and his family. Costs less than my shack in LA, bro. So
We should compare notes, but it is really crazy. Like being top of the market in Oklahoma will get you like a condemned, crack house in LA probably.
This is how I made that comment in our other chat that I can always tell when a brand is started in Los Angeles based on how they price things. And I'm like, you need to take a plane into another part of the country because that is not what we humans pay for.
I was really trying to be complimentary of Sean, by the way. I am sorry. I'm really not being a dick.
Oh, yeah, there's no biscuit factory over here. Oh.
Okay, it's no secret that margins are getting squeezed and profitability is a challenge for brands in 2025. Not a secret. That is where Northbeam's profitability benchmarks come in. It's a new feature. You could check it out. This is a tool from Northbeam that tells you the exact targets that you need to hit to get to profit inside of Northbeam. So no more guessing, no more month-end financial surprises. Hitting these targets helps you ensure that your ad campaigns are actually driving the right behaviors to make your business profitable. That is wonderful. The brands that track this stuff probably already do in Google Sheets. I know I do. I'm going to be checking out this Northbeam new feature. And Northbeam is a big level up from this. And here's what sets kind of what I have seen. Here's what sets profitability benchmarks apart. So instantly you get to quantify your goals into clear benchmarks. Every ad gets measured against those targets right inside of Northbeam. That's kind of cool, actually. And you see, and you can kind of at a glance see which ads are doing well, which needs to go against profitability benchmarks, not just ROAS or whatever else you're using right now. You scale up the winners, you cut the losers, you know the drill. It is hard to argue that this is not great for brands. Profitability benchmarks from Northbeam is like having a speedometer in all your channels, campaigns, ads. You can kind of see everything at a glance against profitability, not something else. So stop leaving money on the table, fuel your creative performance, make every ad dollar count in every channel, hold them all to the same standard. If you want to reach out to Northbeam, just let them know the operator sent you and they will take good care of you. Okay, I got one nerdy question on this topic for you guys. Do any of you actually measure ROIC, return on invested capital?
I was actually about to ask about this. Yes, we totally do. And I want to know what we do. And I'm kind of curious what the standard is if you guys measure it, because we typically are like, we want 60% plus ROIC.
Holy.
And yeah, so it's like, we have a pretty high bar. And I think that's kind of where the rubber meets the road here that we've been getting at, is that functionally the way it should work is you're kind of like, hey, everything above X% return, we're going to keep money in the company. And then everything below that, we're just going to get that money out. We're going to jettison that. So like, and it makes sense if you think about it like that. Like if I have money personally, I can invest in things and I might be able to earn, whatever, a 12, 15, 20% if I'm awesome return. But I can't compound money at 30 or 40%, in my personal, plus it's post-tax. That's the other thing, is that you take the big hit of taxes when you take money out, especially in a C Corp. So anyway, like, Jason, do you guys, you probably don't think about it that way. Sean, maybe we're unique in this, but we look at ROIC all the time.
Well, I think the thing to tell, like, why are we saying invest money in your business? It's because your business has the ability to outperform the stock market,
By a
right?
lot.
And like, and if you get to a position where it's better to be in the stock market than in your business, that's why Mike's saying that's a harbinger of bad times to come. That means your business's the enterprise value will underperform just buying the S&P 500, and none of our businesses are at that point. But like, a lot of companies
We're all
just
way
end up
too
being
small.
yeah. They end up just being dividend cash cows or whatever because like they're only worth whatever their EBIT generates, and that's not a place you want to be. That's where a business is worth 1x or 2x earnings or something, right? Um, so we don't measure that at all, Mike. I'd love to know how you measure that. Like I've said this, like no capitals ever came into Ridge. It was just a Kickstarter we did that one time. But I guess like thinking about the cash going into new initiatives that it could go to my pocket, but instead of going to this, that'd be an interesting to measure. Not smart enough to do that. What about you, Jason?
I mean, we do not do it. I know exactly what it is. I read the McKinsey book that defined return on invested capital like in the 90s. And I think it's a little bit antiquated. It was written at a different time with like different kind of businesses with big capital expenditures. I don't think it's worth I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. I think it's really what do investors care about? Growth and profit, and run your business with growth and profit North Stars. And it's just like a lot. I think it's just a lot. I want to keep it simple. So we keep it simple. We have growth and profit North Stars that we're trying to hit. And that's, we're doing everything we can to do that. And we know if we hit those numbers, it'll allow us to do everything we want to do.
But Jason, how do you, on this topic of like how much money you reinvest in the company, how do you guys determine what the appropriate amount is then? Right? Like, do you just have like, here's the projects to grow and we're just going to put money in that, and this is what the P&L needs to look for? Like when you say keep it simple, is that what you mean? You're like, this is just where we're going to put cash this year and we know it's going to produce?
Our overall, areas of expansion, we're not a huge CapEx business, number one, right? Like we didn't build our own factory. We're not a huge CapEx business. And so we're looking at like, do we spend $500,000 to go open up the UAE? Right? Like it's actually less than that. Do we want to have like a net break even on $1 million spent in the UAE over a year and a half? Is it worth it for us to do that? And we're looking at that. We think about that. And maybe there's some like good ROIC or other measure that will help us answer those questions. But there's lots of those questions throughout the organization. Where do we want to invest and how much we want to invest? But the numbers just ain't that big. Like we opened Mexico, and this was because one day I went and shot my mouth off in someone's office. It's like, dude, stand up a site. And I'm like, stand up a site in Mexico. Like, how hard is it? Like, we just did Canada. It's like, it's not that hard. Sign a 3PL, like run some ads. I pulled like a Sean Frank moment, just like, go do it. This is not that hard. And then like two years later, these guys finally did it. And by the way, 3 months after I shot my mouth off, I was kind of like, hey, do we really want to do Mexico? Like, it just sounds like, is it really worth, is it really worth it?
Whose idea was this? Why are we in Mexico?
But I literally did, I like sucked it back. And for some reason they didn't want me. They didn't want to suck it back. So we like literally launched Mexico. But there's like, so for us, there's a lot of geographic expansion that we can invest in. It's like, do we do it? Right? We're really not in Latin America. We're really not in India. I mean, we had someone on the pod a while back who really knew India really well. It's funny because Jeff's wife works for BlackRock, and she's got a team in India. She's just in India, and she was there, and she took a whole bunch of pictures of like Hexclad knockoffs being sold in India that I think are actually being manufactured in India. So
Wow.
India actually has the capability to manufacture cookware, but is the market good enough? So that's the kind of things that we're looking at. Like, is the market for this good? Do we want to go do this product? And do we think we can make money? Is there like a measure that we should be using to help us make those decisions better? I'm just not convinced that there is one. I'm not convinced that ROIC is it.
I want to make the case to you, Jason. I
Please
want to make
do.
the case.
Yeah,
So
I want to hear that.
Here's the way that I think most people listening to this pod could use ROIC. ROIC can be used to compare different investment opportunities against each other. So it's less about like, hey, what's your overall raw number? By the way, I looked it up. Yeti's the last 3 years, 26%, last 5 years, 30 something percent. So that's a public company in consumer, kind of like a ballpark. And like Sean said, that's significantly above, what you can make in the market. But it's helpful whether you're looking at an ROIC goal of 60% or 80% or 30%. To be able to, your team is going to bring you different types of projects you can invest in, and it helps you to kind of compare against them. And I think practically the most applicable way to use this is when it comes to inventory. So I'll give 2 examples. In mass retail, the more product you have, the more you make sure you're 100% on time and full when retailers order product, which means you're going to have more sell-through. So you're constantly playing this game between, do I carry more inventory where no matter what demand is, I never miss an order and I get all my sales? Or do I carry less inventory where I might have some missed sales, but I have more efficiency? And so this is an example, right, of how is my ROIC, my desire goes up, I carry less inventory, but I might lose sales. As my ROIC comes down, I might get more sales and more total profit, just a lower return profile. Another really good example that we've run into is deals with Amazon and the ability to engage in promotional activities throughout the year. Promotional activities are lower return on invested capital because your margins are going to be lower, but they're also incremental sales that when you engage in a big Turkey 11 or whatever Amazon calls it at this point, deal, you are selling a lot more stuff, but you're doing it at lower margins at a lower ROIC. And so the more that you can help your organization to think this way, the more you can make strategic decisions about how you buy inventory in different ways. As just really simply, the more inventory you buy, the more sales you're going to be able to harvest and the more nominal profit you're going to be able to make off that, but the lower your return profile. And there's a point where it doesn't make sense to have more inventory because the return on that inventory is so small. But there's other times where it's if you try and run too efficient, that you have out of stocks and that's bad and you're leaving money on the table. So practically, I think it comes to inventory buying and how you approach it.
There definitely is a need for better measures of how you invest in things. I think it's good discipline to use anything. Like the fact that using ROIC, it's good discipline to do it. I think, as you said, it's works well when you're talking about, okay, we got to go invest all this inventory. We got to invest a bunch of capital in all this inventory. Does this make sense? So we're making choices about launching this line or that line, and we're going to have to tie up a bunch of capital to do that. Yeah, I think so I will take it back. In those cases, it makes sense. In a lot of the the small investment decisions we're making, do we want to partner with this influencer? It's kind of in the noise.
I think what I'm taking away from this, and Sean, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, but I'm taking away, because we don't use our ROIC, but I'm taking away that we need some measure of how do we know this was a good decision, right? What is this a good reinvestment of capital in the business? And how do we measure each thing against each other? So if there's 5 or 6 opportunities we're staring at inside the company, how do we actually put them side by side?
It's like having common language for anything. Yeah. I don't know that ROIC is some special metric. There's a lot of different ways, but in your organization, it's just important that everybody has kind of a common North Star, that we all understand that when it comes to buying inventory, we're using this as the filter to think through it.
Awesome. We've been going for an hour and 15. Do we want to wrap?
That's the pod.
I do want to remind people that I'm doing a killer trip to Israel in September, and it's going to be amazing. And we've got a bunch of really cool people already signed up to come. So we're doing the first e-commerce mission to Israel. We're going to meet with a bunch of high-level people there in the government, in the investment community, and it's going to be super fun. Israel's an amazing country. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, and you don't know a place until you actually go there and see it. Like any place. I've been to China. I've been to India. People have lots of preconceived notions based on what they hear in the media. And I think you really need to go someplace and see it for yourself. So I'm going with the Israel Tech Mission. There's a bunch of great ecom people coming with us. And I hope there's a few more slots left. I hope some of our people join. And if anyone has a fiscal reason why it's difficult for them, reach out to me because I can help.
Jason, what are the dates?
It's around September 14th, like week of September 14th.
Beautiful. All right. That's the pod. Thank you, Matt, Mike, Jason. Any final words?
I hope I look better next time.
Yeah, dude. For the audience sake, I hope you do too. All right, bye.
All right, thanks for making it all the way to the end of this episode. Wherever you are in the world, it is awesome to have you here. If you do not already subscribe to this show, that is my one ask, is please go to whatever platform you are watching or listening to this on. It could be YouTube, it could be Spotify, Apple, I don't care. Just go hit the subscribe button. Please pump our egos up. It helps. And before we go, one more thank you to the sponsors, Fulfill, Postscript, Northbeam, Ceres, and Rich Panel. Awesome guys running these companies. We all use them. These are our vendors. That's the only reason they're sponsors of the show. So thanks again to those people.